If you've ever felt broken just because you feel too much, here's the truth. You're not crazy, and you're not weak. Carl Jung understood exactly why you feel this way, and what he discovered will change how you see yourself. You already know what it feels like to carry too much. You walk into a room, and before anyone even speaks, your body has already picked up the tension, the sadness behind a smile, the quiet anxiety in someone's laugh, the anger that no one else notices, but you feel it like static in the air. Most people move through their day blind to these things. They hear words, not the weight beneath them. But you don't get that luxury. You absorb it all. You don't just hear emotions, you inherit them. And here's where the struggle begins. On the surface, people see your presence as a gift. You're the listener, the one they trust, the one who seems to always understand. They come to you with their secrets, their fears, their heartbreaks, and you hold it with them. To them, you're strong, but inside, you're exhausted, because what they don't see is the cost. Every smile you give takes energy. Every conversation adds to the invisible weight you're carrying. And by the end of the day, you're not only holding your own emotions, you're dragging around pieces of everyone else's. That's why you feel broken. That's why relationships sometimes feel more like responsibility than connection. Why even a short visit or a simple call can leave you drained for hours afterward. You've mistaken this exhaustion for weakness. But it isn't weakness at all. It's proof that you're living in a constant flood of emotional signals most people never even register. And here's the cruel irony. Empaths are celebrated for their compassion, but rarely protected from the burnout it causes. Society praises you for being so caring, but it doesn't show you how to set boundaries or how to return what doesn't belong to you. Instead, it rewards you for giving more, listening harder, carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. So you grow up thinking the problem is you, that maybe you're too sensitive, too soft, too fragile. You start wondering if you were built wrong, if the way you feel means you'll always be at a disadvantage in a world that seems so unbothered. But Jung saw something else. He believed this struggle was not proof that you're broken. It was proof that you're awake. He believed empaths carry a hidden role inside the collective, and the way he described it decades ago explains exactly why you've always felt out of place. Long before the word empath was popular, Carl Jung was already describing you. He noticed there were people who didn't just live in their own emotions, they carried the emotions of the entire room. He saw how these people often became healers, mediators, caretakers, not because they consciously chose it, but because they couldn't help but absorb what others denied in themselves. Jung called these hidden roles archetypes, patterns we all unconsciously live out. For empaths, the archetype often looks like the healer, the mirror, the one who feels what others refuse to face. You don't just reflect emotion, you magnify it. People are drawn to you because being with you feels like being seen. But that same gift is also the curse. You see so much, you lose track of where others end, and you begin. And here's where Jung issued his warning. The more you carry for others, the more you risk burying your own shadow. While you're busy patching up everyone else's wounds, your own go untouched. While you reflect everyone else's truth, your truth slips into silence. This is why so many empaths feel invisible, even while surrounded by people who need them. Jung experienced this firsthand in his own practice. He described how some patients weren't just struggling with their personal problems, they were absorbing the unspoken material of entire families, even cultures. To Jung, this wasn't pathology. It was sensitivity pushed to its breaking point, and he believed that sensitivity if misunderstood, could crush someone under the weight of collective unconsciousness. But here's the twist. Jung didn't think this meant you were doomed. He believed empaths weren't broken, just unfinished. The world had handed you everyone else's emotions, but it never gave you permission to discover your own. That missing piece, what Jung called individuation, is the key to why you've always felt split in two. So why do empaths feel broken? Why does every attempt to help others leave you emptier? Jung had a radical answer. It's not because you're weak. It's because you've been taught to play everyone else's role while abandoning your own. And once you see this, the struggle finally starts to make sense. Think about it. From childhood, you probably learned to scan the room before you even spoke. You learned which emotions were safe to express and which had to stay hidden. You became the peacekeeper, the fixer, the one who could sense tension and smooth it over before anyone else even noticed. That survival strategy made you valuable, but it also made you forget yourself. Jung would say this is where the fracture begins. When your ego over-identifies with others, your own identity dissolves. You start living through other people's emotions instead of your own. You start measuring your worth by how well you ease someone else's pain while never asking what you need to heal. At the same time, you neglect what Jung believed was the most essential path: individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are. Empaths often delay or even abandon this path because they're too busy carrying the collective. They forget that growth isn't just about feeling others, it's about finding themselves. And then there's the mask. Jung called it the persona, the social role you perform to survive. For empaths, this mask often looks like being endlessly kind, endlessly available, endlessly understanding. It earns you acceptance, but it costs you authenticity. Behind the mask, you're tired. Behind the smile, you're hurting. But no one sees that version of you because the mask works too well. That's why you feel split. That's why you sometimes wonder if you're weak or defective. But Jung reframed it. You're not broken. You're unfinished. The world praised you for being the mirror, the healer, the caretaker. But it never handed you the tools to be yourself. And here's the shift. Once you recognize this, the struggle stops being shameful. It becomes a map. Because the very sensitivity that overwhelms you now can become the strength that carries you forward, if you learn how to turn it inward, toward individuation. So the real question isn't whether you're broken. The question is, what would happen if you stopped carrying everyone else's weight long enough to discover your own? Here's where Jung's message flips everything on its head. He didn't see empaths as fragile souls destined to be crushed by the world. He saw them as unfinished, people standing at the edge of transformation. What looks like brokenness is really potential waiting to be integrated. The same sensitivity that feels unbearable right now can become the source of your deepest strength. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole. And for empaths, it means something radical. You were never meant to carry everyone else's emotions. You were meant to learn which ones are yours and which ones aren't. To stop confusing someone else's storm with your own weather. Picture it. You walk into a room and yes, you still sense the tension, the sadness, the anger hanging in the air. But instead of drowning in it, you're grounded. You know exactly where you end and others begin. You don't absorb the storm, you witness it. And because you're rooted in yourself, the storm passes through you without breaking you. That's individuation in action. Not rejection of your sensitivity, but mastery of it. And here's the truth every empath needs to hear. You're not supposed to numb your sensitivity. You're not supposed to grow a thicker skin or pretend you don't feel what you feel. Your path is different. You're meant to anchor your sensitivity, to strengthen it by aligning it with self-knowledge. Because once you know yourself deeply enough, the world's noise can't distort you. Jung would say, you're not meant to carry the world. You're meant to carry yourself so completely that you can step into any storm and still stand tall. That's not weakness. That's resilience, born from depth. But here's the catch. You don't reach that strength by avoiding your shadow. You reach it by integrating it, by reclaiming the parts of yourself you've buried under everyone else's needs, by pulling off the mask that society trained you to wear and letting your authentic self breathe. By learning that boundaries aren't selfish, they're the structure that allows your gift to survive. The brokenness you felt all these years, it isn't the end of your story, it's the doorway. Jung believed that when empaths walk this path, they don't just survive, they transform. They become whole in a way that no amount of people-pleasing, no social mask, no forced strength could ever achieve. And that's why your sensitivity isn't your flaw, it's your foundation. The world told you it makes you weak. Jung would say it's what makes you unshakable if you choose to finish what you started. But here's the thing. Once you start anchoring your sensitivity, new challenges show up. Jung warned that if you hide behind a mask for too long, it begins to suffocate the real you. He also noticed why empaths so often find themselves tangled with narcissists, two opposite poles of the same unconscious dance. And he saw how ignoring your limits leads to something darker, burnout that no one else can see coming. These are the next layers, the hidden traps. And they matter, because they're the exact places where empaths lose themselves again, just when they thought they were finally free. So if you've always felt too sensitive, here's the truth. Jung saw you coming. He understood your struggle long before the world had language for it. You are not broken. You are becoming. And in the next video, we'll go deeper into what happens when sensitivity turns into identity, and why empaths mistake masks for strength. If you've ever wondered why you can feel everyone else, but rarely feel yourself, you'll want to see this.